Welcome to the Endless Entrepreneurs YouTube channel. My name is Luke Henson. I am a part-time eBay seller, a part-time real estate investor, and I work as a consultant in the corporate finance world. If you're new to my channel, welcome. This is the official first episode of a new weekly series called Reselling to Real Estate. As the title suggests, it's going to discuss the two worlds of both reselling and real estate investing. To give a more specific view of what you can expect week over week, this channel has really been since the beginning. It's just documenting what I've done from a business perspective. It started as reselling only, and I just documented my learning experiences as I've grown my real estate or my reselling business on eBay. And as I've continued to leverage and move forward and develop more streams of income, real estate has been the next one that I've added into the line, and I really want to continue that trend of documenting that journey because selfishly, it's going to be really cool to look back, years from now, the process and the journey and the grind to get there. Two, and probably more importantly, is I think that sharing both the successes and the failures of each of these journeys with everyone else. But I learn faster, and hopefully you guys can learn from my mistakes. As true intent of this channel is really to show the good and bad, not just the good. So hopefully I've been true to that, and that's added value to people who followed me for a while. The evolution of this show, this will just be a weekly show, and long term the goal will be, as I'm diving into each topic related to real estate investing, and I'll get into more of what I'm doing specifically in that arena because it's a really big world to say real estate investing. There's a ton of different ways you can do that. But each week will be to cover topics that are relevant to the things I'm attacking right now. I just got my first rental property cash flowing to kick off 2018 and purchased it back in 2016, lived in it, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But so for me, I'm learning stuff every stage of the game, and I just want to share that as I keep moving. This is a live show, so if you're watching again for rewatching it later, that could be why I'm interacting. There will be Q&A in these shows. I think the Q&A is really valuable. There's a lot of great back and forth, and I won't have this long-winded intro to every single weekly episode, but I just thought it was important to level set. For those of you who don't know me, I just kind of might be a little bit of a different audience that starts to filter in. I do want to give a little bit of background. I started reselling on eBay back in 2009, very just like a recreationally garage selling. And then I transitioned, I'd say in about 2014, late 2013, I got a little more serious and disciplined about it. And I've really grown my eBay business. I sold $62,000 worth of stuff on eBay last year as a part-time seller, in addition to my other things that I do. So it's pretty significant for me now. And then, I've been on YouTube since late 2016 when I started documenting that eBay journey officially. And from like a professional standpoint, from working, I used to be the director of a Boys and Girls Club for like 4 or 5 years back in upstate New York area. And then I worked in private equity finance for a couple of years. And then now I'm doing consulting with kind of big data stuff. So I've kind of bounced around. I have I would say short attention span for more career-driven stuff. And I have a much more focused aptitude for growing businesses and things like that, which is why this channel is here, which is why I invest in real estate, and it's why I focus on my eBay. So hopefully that gets you a little bit more background on me. And probably people who follow my channel might not even know all those things. So hopefully it just gives you a nice little summary of what I'm about. But yeah, so I'm going to jump right in. Again, you can rattle off questions throughout the show. I will try to catalog them, but it definitely will be easier when I pause for questions if you save them till then, because I won't miss them. But I really appreciate everyone joining us. So I'm going to start first with just talking about why reselling and real estate makes sense, right? Like why did I even connect the dots of this was the next move for me? I think it's really important that each move you make, first of all, I think it's important to try tons of things and figure out what it is you like. And I think it's important to be very strategic about, after you've tried a ton of things, be really diligent in planning what actually fits for what you want to put your attention to. So, how do you want to devote those hours, and why does it make sense? So I really want to dive into why reselling in real estate strategically makes sense for me. And the first thing I just think is a super, super important one is that resellers are really, 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 really good at identifying undervalued items, whether it be, like I resell clothing, electronics, big bulk lot, whatever it is, even like, flipping cars and different things like that. Like resellers in general have a really good aptitude and eye for recognizing something that is undervalued in the marketplace and taking action on that. All right. So real estate really is no different. Like it's not really that different as far as identifying and seeing those those trends, right? And whether it be that you're flipping real estate, right? Like you want to buy and sell real estate, you want to buy and hold real estate and rent it, right? Either way, you're identifying something that is undervalued and you have the opportunity to make money on. And so I think those are two really important points that if you're interested in real estate at all, and that's really what drew me to it was it has a lot of the similar tendencies to just finding that underappreciated, property, right? When walking through the thrift store, just going back to the recent, right? You're walking through the thrift store, 100 people could pass by something and you see it and you identify what it is in its entirety and that it could make you a lot of money, you pick it up, right? Same with a house. Like not everyone sees the opportunity. Maybe it's in a growing area and the prices are going up steadily, or maybe a school system is about to change and redistrict and something's going to become more valuable. Or maybe that it's, you see something that's really beat up, but it's in a great neighborhood. And you know that if you just gave it a little love and care, that it really could bounce up and be a big asset for you. So again, just kind of re-summarizing, like identifying undervalued items, assets, whatever you want to call it, right? As resellers, we have that aptitude already. So that just becomes that next logical, thing that real estate does make sense from that lens. The next thing is connecting products with buyers and consumers. And I think as resellers, we undervalue this quality, right? And especially when you just sell on one platform, like I just sell on eBay. So, really eBay helps me connect to my buyers. But I'll take it a step further in that as a reseller, to connect to those buyers, even on those platforms, you have to know what they're looking for, right? So you have to be able to identify that trend or that it's desirable. You need to be able to market it the correct way. And, from an eBay perspective, just because I sell on there, I want to talk from that lens is, writing my titles and the pictures and the presentation, right, in the right categories and the right times of listing, all those different things play into being able to connect what I found is undervalued and connect that with the buyer on the other end. And whether you realize that as a skill or not, or you realize the benefit and the value you can bring to that skill, it's there. And I think that it's the same, similar concept on the real estate side, whether it's you bought something to flip and you're going to connect something, you found that undervalued property and you're going to connect it with the right buyer for a higher price at the top of the market, or it's you identified the undervalued piece of property, you're going to market it and connect it to the right renter, right, who's going to pay you money each month to use it. Or flipping it and rehabbing it. Any of those things is still at the end of the day, it's your ability and your skill set to connect that whatever was undervalued you found to an actual consumer in a different marketplace. And I think that mentality, that approach, just kind of that thought process to it is very, very, very similar, especially as a reseller and starting to invest in real estate. And then, lastly, from like the kind of the way they play off each other is there's the ability to be that kind of solopreneur and side hustle with real estate. And I think that's what's always attracted me to eBay. What's always attracted me, to any type of small business is simply the fact that on my own, I can start to learn about it and build it without much help from anyone else. And they don't differ in that, right? Like I can start my eBay business, my Amazon business, whatever, even Shopify, dropshipping, any of these, platforms and ways in e-commerce. You can do that by yourself. You can educate yourself with all free resources, right? You can teach yourself the skills with all free resources, and you can slowly build it with little to no capital. Real estate, I can't say the same for capital necessarily, depending on your approach. There are ways to do it with very little capital. But in general, like it's still the same concept. I can educate and learn about it for, with free resources very, very easily, or very cheap resources. I have the ability to slowly do it on my own around all the other things in my lifestyle, and I can build and grow that business as well. And I think that's where when I mentioned that capital piece, right? And it's like, whereas you need a little more capital for real estate, I think that's why reselling and real estate are that perfect pair, is that you can start to leverage the transactional nature of eBay into and use that capital snowball into the real estate kind of world that it comes into. So those are kind of the three main ways. I just really wanted to mention up front that I thought reselling and real estate just make sense together and they play off each other. And I think that's why I've gravitated towards it. The particular approach that I've chosen, and again, a different episode, I'll probably dive way, way more into this. But the approach that I've taken is I want to acquire rental properties. I'm not so much looking for the quick flip. And one of the main reasons is when I look at eBay for me and reselling in general, it's very, very, very transactional in nature, right? And this is where kind of you get into the advantage of real estate over reselling. They both play into each other, but eBay is always transactional. right? No matter what, I have to pump that with inventory. If I don't relist and get more things to sell, it will go down, right? And my sales will go down and they'll steadily decrease. I have to consistently apply my time and effort in that over and over to grow it and to keep it churning, which is fine, but it's just, that's the definition to me of transactional in nature. That's what it is. Real estate has the ability, and I hate using the word passive because nothing's ever truly passive, but real estate, especially from a buy and hold rental property perspective, has the ability, right? I locate the deal, I find the piece of inventory that's undervalued, I have the guts to pull the trigger on it, I add it to my portfolio, and then I can hold that for 5, 10, 20 years, and that can continually be a source of income for me, a source of equity, a source of leverage and wealth creation. That in eBay, when I find a piece of inventory and I flip it, once I flip it, it's gone, right? I may develop relationships along the way. I might develop relationships with wholesalers and people who can supply my inventory. But either way, I can't take that transactional nature out of the reselling. It's just, it is what it is. And I think that has its place and it's great. Like, I think that's why they can feed each other, right? The transactional nature of an eBay or an Amazon can feed the investment into the real estate. Whereas like you do the one-time work, the upfront work here on the real estate, and it will grow for you, right? You'll grow that equity. You can get some leverage, you get other properties. And then on eBay over here, you can keep that transactional process going, that you're just getting more and more efficient and you're growing and scaling without investing any more time a little bit, right? That can feed the growth of the real estate portfolio. So that's kind of just to get you inside my head and how I view it and why, where I'm going with that. Hopefully that makes sense to you. But that's really where I see the opportunity of the advantage of real estate versus reselling. And it's interesting because I've chatted with a lot of other resellers, and there actually are a lot of resellers who are doing both, right? They have real estate and they're able to leverage both worlds, and they like reselling. And I think a lot of people, I've talked to a lot of resellers who started with real estate and got into reselling. And I think that same mentality kind of leverages back and forth of the ability to see those opportunities. So then the other piece with the advantage of real estate versus reselling, and I've talked to, I think a couple of times, Chris from 10K in the Bay and I, in a couple of our shows, we had hinted at kind of wealth creation versus in the ability to kind of exit versus a transactional business. And in eBay and reselling in general, it's not an easy business to exit and get the value you think it's worth. And I kind of want to explain that a little more is, right, if I grow my eBay inventory to 10,000 items, right? And the value of that inventory, if sold in the market or whatever is, let's just say it's $200,000. The ability to get $200,000 for that is pretty much slim to none, right? It's all perceived value that I've marked up, I've collected all this time, all this legwork for. I'm not very easily going to get someone to give me $200,000 for all that inventory and that work I did. What's more likely is that you're going to have another reseller who's going to buy you out for a fraction of the price because no one's got the cash who wants to invest in that much inventory. And that's just kind of unless it's all new with tag stuff and you can liquidate. But even then, it's really hard to get out of it what you put into it, which goes back to that transactional nature, right? Again, is that you kind of just have to sell off of it. However, if I kind of flip the coin on that and I think about it from a real estate perspective, most times, right? And let's ignore appreciation for the moment, just because that's just a different beast we'll tackle from a different episode. But if I bought a property and I collect rent on it for 15 years or 10 years, and I'm continuing to pay down equity on that, when I sell that property for whatever I end up selling it for, anything above what I have left on the mortgage is a direct return on me. So I'm getting paid that equity that I've already paid down on. So it's not, I'm getting a lot more for that than trying to sell my inventory. Like, you're probably going to get 1/10, if you're lucky, probably 1/20th or 1/30th of the value of your listed inventory if you sell off on eBay or whatever, versus like that property, you're retaining 80-90% of the value on it for sure. So I think it's a different beast from that wealth creation standpoint versus like in the exit strategy and the leverage that goes into that. And I've always, even since I started reselling like way back when, I always kind of thought about exit, right? Like, I don't want to resell forever. I like reselling. I don't think that for 25 or 30 years, I want to continually resell though, right? I want to eventually get a portfolio of real estate that allows me to kind of take my foot off the gas, manage that, and, kind of get out of the reselling. And for me, that's a nice leverage point over the next, 5 to 10 years, is to do both and to leverage and grow until it gets to make more sense to maybe not do reselling as much. So I just think it's important that as you think about if this is for you, or you think about whether you want, to invest in real estate, to me, that was what clicked for me. Was real estate was a decent exit strategy out of reselling, and to be able to do it at the same time parallel. So there's a lot of questions coming through, and I'm gonna take some of those questions right now, and then I will finish up with the other 2 items I have, and then we'll do a little more Q&A. So let me just scroll up here. Oh, sorry guys. So someone asked, are you doing any rehab on these rental units, or are they all turnkey? So that's a really good question, and I will definitely spend a show going into more detail of that. But right now, in order to find in the market I'm in, the Charlotte market, which is extremely, extremely hot rental market, or just real estate market in general, to find underpriced, undervalued, I'm looking for ones that I have to rehab. That's kind of my goal right now. Is I've taught myself how to do some stuff through YouTube. I rehabbed my townhouse that I had purchased. So Shannon and I, my wife, we had purchased a townhouse back in late 2016. We lived in it for a year, which again, another way to get started in real estate. This was a really easy way for me. And we knew all along when we purchased it that that's what it was going to be. We had in mind that we were going to purchase and then rent it out. Then we bought a new house, and then I rehabbed, to get back to rehab point, I rehabbed the rental house. So I redid one of the bathrooms. I put some hardwood laminates in one of the bedrooms, tore out the carpet, did some fixture things, painting, just some cosmetic stuff, nothing major, but I taught myself along the way. And as I keep adding pieces to my portfolio, that rental and that rehab piece of it's going to grow. I'm going to continue to rehab more, to look for even more beat up properties, because there's a lot more money to be made when that's the case. So someone said, I thought about buying a small home or house as my eBay business. I would use rooms, garage for storage. I would use some rooms for taking pictures and thoughts. So that's a question from someone watching. And yeah, that's and one of my last points is going to be some of the tax advantage and strategies of leveraging your eBay business into a real estate purchase. And I'll talk about that at the end there. I promise I will address that. Michelle said, are you buying into apartment buildings, duplexes, or just houses? So my next purchase, I'm trying to be a duplex. And I'll elaborate why, kind of join to that last question in a minute. All right. And someone said, at what point do you think is a good point to change investing in your business to invest in other areas? That's a pretty loaded question. I think it's very, very individual. My best recommendation is when the cash you're generating from your eBay business, you don't rely on for your bills, is a good time to think about reinvesting it into something else, if it's at the size you want. And then someone just asked, how much liquid cash do you have for Get Rentals for Now? Build spec house from the ground up. That's an interesting idea. I'm not really going to address it right now, but buying land in general in Charlotte's pretty difficult right now to make those numbers work, but yes. All right, so I'm going to finish up with the other 2 points, then I'll grab Q&A. And I'm going to answer those 2 questions that I kind of tabled for a second. So one of the big ways that you can leverage your eBay business into a purchase, especially if you're into rehabbing, is the following sequence I'm about to describe. And it's something you have to really be diligent with. It's definitely state by state with the way the laws work. You definitely should have a CPA specialized in real estate to help you with it, especially in the LLC pieces. But one thing that I am trying to do this next year, and I've really, over the last, probably almost a year ago, I started planning for this and putting the things into place. I got the LLC set up for my eBay business. I'm getting another LLC set up for this next property purchase. But what I'm going to do, and something that you could do, I actually have talked about this with Chris with 10K in the Bay as well, is I'm going to try to buy a duplex that's pretty beat up. So a 2-unit one, which is actually pretty hard to do in the Charlotte market. Most of them aren't very beat up. Going to buy that with a different LLC. And I'm going to store all of my eBay stuff in one half of it while I fix up the other half of it. And I can charge, so my LLC that owns the real estate, the duplex, can charge fair market value in rent to my eBay business. So eBay business, which it would be far and above the mortgage likely, since market value around here is really high. And if I'm buying a really beat up one, the numbers should be pretty low. And I can reinvest all of the profit from the rental side, right? So all that money above the mortgage into rehabbing the one side to get it ready to rent as quick as I can. So zero tax liability because I'll spend every dollar over it for the rental property ownership. It'll be a net, net break-even property. I'm reducing the tax liability for my eBay business, which is a big deal, guys. If you guys know doing taxes, right, you end up paying the government quite a bit from that self-employment tax. So it's not like you're paying in throughout the year for it. So I'm reducing that drastically and avoiding paying to IRS while building equity over here with the rental property. And then as soon as it's ready to rent, I can rent out the other half to someone. So now it's cash flowing. And then I can fix up the half that my eBay business is in, right? And it's going to be a slow process for me, doing it. It's going to take me a while because I consult basically 9 to 5. I do consulting work, and then I have my eBay business, and then I'll have the fixing the property. But it's a way that I'm maximizing every dollar I bring in my eBay business and turning it into equity, long-term equity of the property, without paying those in tax dollars. So it's just one way. It's a very specific scenario, but it's something I'm planning. And I tried to speak outside of things I don't know about. That's just one I've researched. I've really done the legwork on, and I'm planning to try to execute. And so that's one I feel comfortable sharing. I've worked with my CPA hand in hand with that and understand, how it works. So I'm able to, to speak to that. There are a lot of other great tax advantages, but hopefully that answers your question about, kind of how to leverage it and a good time to do that, and how I'm trying to use it. And feel free, after the show, drop comments below if you have any questions about how I laid that out, or if you just want to, private message me. I'm more than happy to answer that even further. So yeah, there's that piece to it, and then the last one I just want to is kind of like long term versus short term. Again, I really want to come back to that because I think it's important to talk about why reselling in real estate really makes sense for me. Shannon and I have a lot of goals for us and our family. We want to have kids. We want to, we don't want to work forever in, kind of our 9 to 5 roles, right? That's not something we don't have a goal to do that for the next 25, 30 years. And real estate is a really awesome vehicle for us to create a path and do it together. And so this is the other thing is long term, that's something we can do together. We're both interested in. Whether it be we're looking at Airbnb type options for, beach condos, stuff that's within driving distance that we can use and rent, things different like that. And we want to build this portfolio together that we can manage together, and it'll be an exit strategy for us as a whole. And it's going to take time. Like this isn't, when I say long term, like this isn't even a 5 years from now thing, right? Like this is we're looking 10, 15 years from now. We're planning for that far ahead. And I'm not planning to cycle out of eBay anytime soon either, right? I want all that cash I'm churning from eBay to be able to redirect and reinvest. And I know actually I'd watched a decent video from Chris, the 10K in the Bay. I know I keep bringing him up, but he had one talking about all the different income streams he had and that he was using eBay to leverage into all of those. And I thought it was such a great point, right? Is you're taking one income source and you're snowballing it into so many other ones, and you're reducing the touch points. You're picking ones that need less of your attention so that you can keep churning the cash over here and reinvesting it there. So, that's kind of my general thoughts. I really wanted this episode just to be a high level of why it makes sense for me, what the similarities are. And I really want to describe kind of what I was going to bring, to the table over the next couple of weeks. I currently am managing my own property. I plan to manage the next couple properties myself until I get to probably 3 or 4. Just because I feel like I need to have some leverage with my property management companies I'm going to start to try to work with. And having just one, you don't have as much of that leverage. So I will have, actually I'm going to have a property manager on here to kind of discuss and grow and learn through. And I'm going to be bringing people onto the show like that. So as I'm learning these topics, that I can share those with you. And I know a lot of people are interested in this topic. And I want to be very careful that I'm not going to try to give you expert advice in all the areas because I myself don't know yet, but I'm going to share with you the process it's taking to learn about it as I'm building both my eBay business and this. So hopefully that'll be interesting. Hopefully it'll add value to people who are curious about it. I do get a lot of questions on this, on social media. So hopefully this will help address that. Now, if you want to drop some more Q&A here, I see some questions roll in that I'll start to grab. We'll take the next few minutes to do Q&A, and then we'll wrap up at 7:30. I'm going to try to keep these to a half hour. Had a lot of feedback from viewers that half hour seems to be like half hour or less seems to be the sweet spot for videos. So I'm going to try to pack these as much information as possible and do that. So someone just asked, can renovations be expensed or do they have to be depreciated over time? So the minute you start, well, as an investment property, but they become expenses, correct? Yeah. So when you're renovating them, it's like a P&L approach, right? You get to deduct those, especially if you're renovating to get it rent ready, they become expenses for that year. Um, let's see. Someone just said, is the use of leverage the primary benefit to real estate versus other passive investments? That's a great question. So I think two things there. The answer that twice. So I think the leverage of the equity you're building to snowball and use to keep growing it is, yes, a huge primary benefit versus other passive investments. I also think they hold their value much better than other passive investments, right? Like building up, I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's use like Kindle publishing, for example. Kindle publishing was huge, and it was really marketed as a nice passive way to generate income because you could just keep publishing all these little books, these little ebooks, these how-to books, and they generate money over time. They're passive, and just long-term, you keep pumping it, and it's just going to keep residual. The problem with that is that kind of went out of the model went out. And so it didn't permanently stay there. And now all that investment up front, you lost almost all the value on it. I mean, probably 50, 60, 70% of the value. Whereas investing in the real estate, like even with the '08 crash and all this stuff going down, it's like, if you're investing with a smart strategy in your approach to buying very undervalued assets and repair, rehabbing, things like that, like for the most part, you're able to retain the value much, much better than some of those other passive forms of income. So that's just how I feel about it. That's my general thought process. I mean, and how I view it. Someone just asked, would you buy the beat up property outright or mortgage? It just depends. There's not really a one size fits all answer to that question. I understand why, but for the most part around here in Charlotte, I would probably be mortgaging a lot of it just because even the beat up ones are, I mean, they're going fast. If I had some decent hard money lending options and I knew that I could, leverage and do something a little quicker, maybe, I don't really know. But right now my plan is to buy and hold and do it through mortgages and, kind of leverage existing equity I have to do that. Michelle said, what percentage of profit do you plan to set aside for repairs and maintenance? That's a great question. So the way I modeled my first townhouse is I pretty much put 10% aside, like 10% in rent for expenses, like on top of my mortgage that I would need. And the reason it's probably a little high only because as an HOA, I don't have to worry about any exterior repairs. So like, no siding, no roof, no lawn maintenance, nothing. All they were as interior. But I like to be really conservative with it. And even with that 10%, the numbers worked well and it's still cash flowing. And that's on top of, all the other expenses you think about. I think it's really important that you don't just model the expenses and repairs, but you should model property management fees, whether you're going to use them or not, so that when you get to the point to use them, the numbers still make sense. That was something that I read and learned really early on, and I've tried to use even when we bought the townhouse. As I built in enough that margin for the repairs, the expenses, and that. And there'll be other videos, Michelle, I'll really dive into kind of how I analyze properties. I cannot recommend enough Bigger Pockets forums. I spend almost all my time on those. It's a free resource. I watch almost all their videos. I actually paid their monthly fee to use their property analyzer unlimited, property analyzing tool they have. It's a fantastic tool. I've learned so much. And in a future show, I'll definitely walk through and do a couple of them. They do them live on their show too. They're fantastic. And so someone just said, to kind of back up their question, they said passive investing such as stocks. I'm not, let me clarify. I also have a portfolio of stocks and things that I'm self-managing and with IRAs and things. I don't think real estate should be a substitute for that. I think it should be in addition to that. So like I have both rolling. I wouldn't ever do just one or the other. I'm doing both. So Shane just said, have you thought about getting in the hotel business down the road? I have not even thought about that. Always open to hearing about new areas to invest in, but yeah, that's where I'm at. Aaron just asked me what an hour of my time is worth. That's really funny because Jason from Prof Sales and I were talking about this the other day. It depends, right? So I have a value for what my hours are worth when I consult, but that's a supply and demand thing too, right? So my hours are worth different based on the activity that I'm performing. On eBay, I try to model a minimum of a $60 an hour return on whatever I'm doing. So I'm going to stick to reselling there. I'm so new to real estate. from the standpoint of I just don't know how to determine my time invested for that yet. I haven't figured that out yet, Aaron. I think that's a great question. But for eBay, since it's kind of like a side business, I probably try to model after $60 an hour. Let's see. Brian said home equity loans are no longer tax deductible after this year, which hurts. Yeah, that is very true. Someone just said a talented reseller can turn 10K in inventory into 40K in gross profit in a year and still have 10K in inventory at year end. Difficult to match that in our RE or stocks. That's interesting. So I guess the approach I take here is if I'm accumulating a rental property each year, it's not about the cash return on top. It's not only about the cash return on top of the mortgage and everything, all expenses, right? It's not just about that. You're also getting your mortgage paid for every single month in a buy and hold strategy, right? That has built up equity that you're not doing anything for the most part. That's an interesting question, and I'll probably address it in a later episode. But I think that's why they both make sense to do them each and to leverage them. So No TV said, question, what kind of real estate do you buy, rentals or flips? So again, my specific strategy is buy and hold with rentals right now. And Brian said landlording is not passive. I've done it. And I preface a ton of times, Brian, I'm not saying real estate is passive. I don't like using the word passive because nothing's really truly passive. It's just really not. But from a perspective of if you know what you're doing and you're doing it the right way, you can limit your time spent on it. So ouch. The Brian saying that my first tenant flooded the master bedroom when she overflowed the tub. And that's so funny you bring that. I will probably do a show in the future on kind of horror stories from landlording perspective. I've heard tons. I have friends. Actually, I have a friend who pretty much runs a property management firm, and he has all sorts of stories. But it's, it can be. It's just all about strategy and approach and your risk tolerance and how you set it up and the systems you have in place. That's such a loaded statement to make. So No TV said, are you ever going to quit your actual job? Define actual job. I understand where you're getting at. I'm in a position right now, from the consulting type contracting world where my time is valued by hour. I get to be social. I get to work on projects. I get to work on things that are engaging. I would tell you that the minute that stops being engaging and satisfying my social need, because I'm a very social person, I get this question all the time. And the moment that I don't need, where my time becomes more valuable working on my other ventures than that, then I probably would make the switch. So someone said, so David asked, do you ever do any hard money loans to make quick RE flips or wholesale flips? I do not. I have not. I can't say I will not. But I'm not currently looking to do quick flips right now. I'm really looking at the buy and hold strategy of rental properties and rehab. It just fits maintaining real estate and my, kind of my day consulting stuff. It's the time I need to do this is much different than if I was doing hard money loans with quick flips and things like that. That's a whole different beast that I'm not ready to tackle. I'm not saying I would eliminate that in the future, but just not something I'm ready to tackle right now. All right, guys, I will take one or two more questions if there are any. Otherwise, I am going to wrap up. I do appreciate everyone watching. If you don't mind, hit that like button, especially this new content, new titles, a lot of new tags and keywords. Let YouTube know this is valuable as it goes up. I will be back each week. It looks like Monday nights are my best nights. That's why I didn't do this show on Sunday. So, it's Monday, February 12th for those of you rewatching. And I plan to do these every Monday. Some weeks we'll have guests. Some weeks it'll be me going to different topics. But I just plan, again, documenting this journey that I'm on now, in addition to my reselling, showing how they play off each other, and hopefully just shedding a lot of light and hopefully erasing doubt or, fears of people who want to jump into this realm. Hopefully I can show you kind of some of the mistakes I made, some of the things that aren't as hard as they look, all those things. Hopefully I can just help and instill some confidence if it is something you're interested in. And David, feel free to hit me up on Instagram, Endless Entrepreneurs. If anyone has questions after you, either drop them in the comments, or the quickest way to get a response from me is direct message on Instagram. And I'm going to take one more comment here. So Brian just said, I'm liking the Cardone method, which is save money and buy a bigger amount of units, doors versus 1 or 2 doors. Makes sense to me, but it takes a lot more time to save with the down payment. I absolutely agree, and that's why I'm starting smaller with the smaller units to build up that equity, get the leverage where I eventually maybe can do a bigger unit deal like that. And Shane, no, I do not plan on buying real estate outside my state yet. I plan on my first probably 5 to 10 purchases are going to be very local, with the exception it's not out of state, but I may. Shannon and I definitely are very, very interested in buying a condo on one of the beaches in North Carolina that we can use when we want and run out and try to break even out the next time. So. Any case, thank you so much, guys, for watching. Leave comments below on topics that you're interested to, like things you've heard, whether it's myths you've heard about or things or fears you have about it, whatever. Drop them in the comments. Let me know. It gives me an idea of how to craft my content. Obviously going to model after what I'm dealing with, but it's nice to hear what you guys are thinking about, what you want to know about, and I will definitely try to craft that content towards it. Have an awesome night, guys. Super appreciate the support. We'll talk to you later.